And that's how 850 KOA announced the military jury conviction of Colonel Lakin yesterday on their 6 o'clock news, and it isn't true. He never once said that Barack Obama wasn't born in America. That's just insane. That wasn't all he wanted to do was, what's the truth? It's Thursday morning, 14th of December, 2010, 29 the high today, 11 degrees tonight. Please say good morning and welcome back. He's become a very important part of our show. I'm a huge fan of his. I've read so much now about him. Retired General Paul Vallely joins us. Good morning, sir. Thanks for coming back on the show.
Good morning, Peter.
All right, so yesterday the colonel is found guilty on all counts. Just your overall thoughts of everything that happened yesterday and the aftermath, please.
Well, I think what happened, Peter, as I understand it, they entered the court-martial's room at Fort Meade, Maryland, and basically the judge really, we might say, jammed them into, you're going to face a larger sentence here if you don't plead guilty, and basically provided no opportunity for a defense again on the root question of whether the orders were from a chain of command and all the way through up to the White House to Obama, whether he was eligible to be commander-in-chief. So therefore, if he wasn't, then the orders were not lawful. So I think Terry Lakin realized that he could have gone to jail for 3 to 4 years.
Yeah,
Fort Leavenworth.
42 months.
42 months.
Yeah.
And that he had already stated in some way that he did not make the meeting with his commander, which was one of the charges, as well as missing shipment. So it looks like there's no way he could get out of that one, and so therefore he pleaded guilty to several of the charges. And so now we have to wait and see what the sentence will be. They're thinking more like it'll be 18 months or less, probably discharged from the service, may not have his retirement. But it's a total kangaroo court, Peter. This just shows you how far down our justice system has gone, as well as within the Uniform Code of Military Justice within the armed forces.
He was never, but what's interesting in the pretrial hearing in September, and I'll just tell you what I've read and what I've listened to, is that Colonel Lynn in the pretrial denies him any rights that he would have in a civilian courtroom. He doesn't have discovery. He's not allowed to call witnesses. He's not allowed subpoena powers. He's allowed nothing. And I think at that point in September, and maybe someday we'll know, I think at that point he knew.
Well, that's exactly right. And when they set up and it is a kangaroo court.
Sure.
If I can't go in and defend myself, and all really he was asking that eligibility be proven, and like all of us have to do, provide a birth certificate that we are, in fact, a natural-born citizen of the United States. And in that particular office of president, it's required. But I've had to produce my birth certificate for almost everything that I've done.
Yeah, we know nothing more. I spoke with his brother, Dr. Greg Lakin, this morning when we came out of the box at 5 a.m. And, I mean, the ball's been moved further down the field just because of the amount of attention now that the story's getting, even though, albeit how the media is reinterpreting what happened, including emailers and others to the show, and I'll be more glad to take your calls and read your emails, but the ball's been moved further down the field, but we know nothing more about the validation of the constitutional eligibility of the president than we did when this whole thing began.
That's correct. That is exactly right, Peter. We do not know. I can remember going in and having to present my birth certificate when I went into the armed forces at West Point as a cadet, and later on down the line for my passport. And so for
I've made
President of the United States, which is a requirement, there was no vetting, Peter, and nobody is challenging it within our government.
Yeah, and I've made the case here. Arapahoe County little soccer groups, Little League Soccer or Little League Baseball, Barack Obama could not play. He couldn't. I mean,
he couldn't play because he would have his birth certificate.
When you go down and register a little Muffy or Buffy to play, you got to show him a birth certificate. So now what?
Well, we all know his father was born in Kenya.
Oh, sure. I mean, but I mean, there's no question of that. I mean, there's parts of his life that have been, as we say, almost 50 years, and there's no paper trail. There's no footprints. There's no bona fides. His father was a British subject out of when the British were run the Crown Colony of Kenya. But through his mom, does he meet the constitutional requirements?
No.
I think he does. I think that the last time it was really looked at was Chester Arthur, whose father was a Canadian. But this was a time before the rights of women. And I don't know what the court would do with that, because obviously Chester Arthur's mom didn't count. But in this case, I think Stanley Ann does count. But I think it's in the aftermath of all of this, and not when he's a little kid, because he doesn't have a say-so in who his mom marries or where he lives or where he's put in school. But I think it's in the aftermath where he can look at these documents that he has and says, I'll use this to get a better deal in this school, or to get that, or to jump to here, to go to that. And I think that all of those things worked for him. And then he got to the point, and it's like, oh, my God, I didn't think I was going to arrive here. Or there is something that's so damning in some of those primary documents that would, throw everybody into a tailspin. But no one, I call it Roswell, General, because no one knows, so everybody's allowed to speculate.
Well, that's right. And we as individuals that want to abide by our wonderful Constitution, and again, as citizens, we have to produce a birth certificate for many things that we do. And that's all we ask of Obama to do. And the fact that he will not do it raises a lot of questions.
Surely. I mean,
it certainly could be satisfied immediately.
Without a doubt. And now this man will certainly be incarcerated, and Barack Obama sits silently by and lets it happen.
That's exactly right.
And that's way out of line.
It's way out of line.
I mean,
there's no doubt about it. Answer the question. Let's get on with it one way or the other.
Sure.
And it has nothing to do with the birther, where the left wing tries to throw all the people that bring up this question. It's a matter of rule of law, and it's a matter of the courts doing their job. But in a case where you're being court-martialed or going through a jury trial, you certainly have all the rights to defend yourself. So it seems to me there was total intimidation from the White House on through the Department of Defense down to the convening authority.
I think they knew when this was coming forward that I'm saying that the DOD and they knew exactly what they were going to do to keep this guy in a box. And now, like his brother said, I mean, he feels that weight, and I think you expressed it this morning as well. I think by the time they got to the pretrial hearing, that I think Terry Lakin knew at that moment that he was done.
I think so, absolutely. And it was Terry's decision.
Absolutely.
Finally, of whether to plead guilty or not guilty, no matter what Neil Puckett, his defense counsel, had said. And basically, Neil realized he was locked out of any opportunity to bring any discovery in.
Yeah, he was allowed nothing.
So how did we get here, Peter? That's the question. How did we get here with the corruption at the federal level of our governments, our court systems, our judges ruling from the bench on political whims and beliefs rather than the rule of law? This is where we have come today. It is absolutely unbelievable. That's why it's got to be changed. And if we can't depend on the Supreme Court to enforce the rules of the land, then we are lost as a nation and a republic.
And like we've tried to have some pretty good conversations, the oath is not to an individual or to the president. The oath is to the Constitution.
That's correct.
And so that's one of the reasons Jefferson, I tried to talk about it in the 8 o'clock hour, Jefferson feared a standing army. Europe was replete with examples. And as a matter of fact, we're talking about the Nazi period just moments ago, when they made the officer corps take the oath to Adolf Hitler, not to Germany, not to any established rule of law, but to a man. And it turned into what it turned into. You can't do that. The oath, when Terry Lakin or yourself took an oath, you didn't take it to Lyndon Johnson. You didn't take it to Jack Kennedy. You didn't take it to FDR. You took it to the Constitution.
Constitution of the United States.
Right. And so...
Well, there's so many other things, Peter, happening in this whole judicial court system with the corruption within the Department of Justice. Not only does it have to do with what they're trying to do with the detainees at Guantanamo, it has to do with Jan Brewer in Arizona, and it goes on and on and on. It goes to the mere fact that the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals out of San Francisco, totally corrupt and judging and delivering rules, procedures, and what would be said and not said from the standpoint of those seeking defense of their cases. And so we see it happening all over the country each and every day.
So what happens next? I mean,
well,
he goes into.
I think weakness totally breeds contempt. And so when you see the weakness of a system and it starts breaking down, and we can see this happening in Greece, we can see it happening overseas.
Oh, it's in Italy, it's in London.
And that's exactly right. So the weakness of government to stand by values and to stand by what's right, and we know what's right. Within your heart, you know what's right and wrong. It's not something you have to go to school for.
Let me read you an email and have you respond to it. Since George Bush, this is from I give the address, I shouldn't do that. Since George Bush got fewer votes than Al Gore, and this was not a real president, why didn't Chicken Colonel Lakin refuse to report then? Did Lakin see birth certificates for everyone up the chain of command too? Obama showing birth certificate changes nothing. The guy still disobeyed orders and admits it. Hello, Leavenworth, and Club Fed camp outside Leavenworth actually is where he'll probably go. What do you say to that emailer?
Well, again, you go back to his basic rationale and reason, raison d'etre, for not obliging the orders that were given him for departure and movement, as well as to reporting to a commanding officer on the same subject, when basically right from the beginning, the chain of command was not validated.
Yeah.
And that validation was strictly a proof of natural-born citizen, and that was not there.
The Constitution is
he has the right again, as a citizen, as a member of the armed forces, to abide by the Constitution and the rule of law.
Colonel, Colonel, listen to me. General, how's your time this morning, and can you stay? I got to take a break hang on, sir, please.
Absolutely.
General Paul Valley is our guest, 15 after 6, 630 KHOW. Traffic time, here's Susan. All right, 21 after the hour, 6:21. Good morning. 29 the high today, 11 degrees tonight, 31 on Friday. Colonel Lakin was convicted on 4 charges. Everyone believed that would happen. Retired General Paul Valley, great guest, is with us. One of the questions I had is that this is the shot across the bow. There's something that historians call the next man theory. So there won't be a next man. This is the Department of Defense, the military, the Obama administration saying there is no next guy. Do you buy that?
I do buy that. And I think that's where they put the spear in the ground. And they've done this through the chain of command, through the command authority that ended all the way down into a court with a judge by the name of Colonel Lynn, who stated in the hearing that there would be no discovery because it would embarrass the President of the United States to take any efforts to move forward on that issue. Now, what does America think about something like that if they were to be faced in a court and that you could not prevent or present your evidence in discovery because it'd be embarrassing to the other party. Where's that in the law?
Yeah,
I don't think it's anywhere,
no.
Peter. I mean, I'm not a lawyer, but I don't recall ever that being a part of the justice system that would be embarrassing to the other party.
In the September, and again, this is the shot across the bow to any person who wants to think they can do this next. But there was a pretrial September the 2nd, and it was held in Fort Meade, and the defense team was denied any motion to compel Hawaii to produce any records. They call them NATO, NATAL, I believe. Additionally, the motion was asked for the court appearance and testimony of state of Hawaii officials. They're called the custodians of records. That was denied. You were denied. McInerney was denied.
General McInerney.
McInerney, I'm sorry, I mispronounced. School records. I mean, the list of things were all denied.
It's very lengthy.
Yeah. Oh, there's an incredible list of things. So I read this. This is from Colonel Lynn. I brought this in from last night. On that same day, Lynn said, any suggestion by the defense that the authority of military officers to issue lawful orders ceases to exist if a serving president is found to be unqualified is erroneous. Any suggestion by the defense that the president is found to be unqualified to hold office, service members have no duty to follow any orders by military superiors, is equally erroneous. At that point, looking back on this and reading some analysis last night, the game was over.
The game was over, absolutely right. And we see instances of the violation of this rule of law during the Nazi regime with Hitler, and basically where you had a rule of man moved from a rule of law. Mm-hmm. And so you see how easily a republic of the United States and our Constitution by rule of man can move so quickly in its interpretation and its exactment of the following of what was intended by the rule of law. So if that makes sense, Peter, it certainly confounds me, as well as it should the people of the United States, that this republic has moved so far away from the Constitution and the rule of law now that we are in deep trouble. And the question is, how do we get it back, and how do we preclude this administration from taking us into a progressive socialist area that looks like a tyrannical government being formed to a lot of people? You know, taking over the gun rights, precluding citizens per the Constitution, the Second Amendment, the First Amendment rights, the threats now coming out of quelling and being able to shut down the Internet.
Yeah, I saw that this morning.
This is a dangerous, dangerous time in our lives. Mm-hmm. And the American people must stand up and say, we're not going to take it anymore. This is it.
Well, curtailing talk radio was something they've spoken about.
Absolutely.
Curtailing the Internet, and they will have. And this just falls down into, it's not socialism, it's fascism. It's
movement to a tyrannical government.
Absolutely.
And this is why your statement was very exact, Peter, about being the last man here. And if we can't depend on discovery and defense within our court-martial system of our soldiers, and Lord knows we have a number of them now out at Fort Leavenworth who have been tried for killing terrorists, for example. And we could go on and talk about those almost dozen people out there now that are in jail because of these wars.
I'll read you a final email. Peter, don't read anything in front of the general if you know what's good for you. He's a linguistics expert and will think you're a bigger doofus than he already does.
My goodness. Is that a compliment or a put down on you or me? I'm not sure. What is that?
I think it's aimed at either both of us or me. We'll hopefully I'm going to be off next week. And what do you expect the sentencing to be on Terry Lakin? His brother said up to 18 months. Other people have said 42 months. I don't have any idea.
Well, of course, when you plead guilty, there's two things here. Number one, what the sentence will be, which is usually a lessened sentence. So I'd say it'd be 18 months or shorter. Certainly to remove him as an officer from the U.S. military, giving him a discharge of some kind, perhaps dishonorable, taking away pay and allowances. So there's about 4 or 5 different things they can penalize and punish him with, Peter. But I would say it'd be 18 months. And of course, when you plead guilty, as I understand it, then you don't have no chance for appeal.
No, well, I read something last night, and again, knowing nothing at all about it, that there is an out card. If I could for a second turn to my notes, there are some legal scholars that believe that he was placed that Lakin was placed under duress by Judge Lynn.
No doubt about that.
They claim she was biased, denying evidence, discovery, etc., and that Lakin's commanding general, Major General Horst, Horst, has the authority to allow a second trial. But here's the guy's a 2-star. So if Lakin is sentenced to more than 1 year in prison, he also will receive an automatic appeal to the Army Court of Criminal Justice, effectively as a second jury, and could overturn his convictions. If he loses the appeal at the ACC level, Lakin can appeal to the Armed Forces. If the CAFF hears his appeal, and again I'm reading this, but denies it, Lakin could go to the Supreme Court. But say the scholars, the Supreme Court rarely grants hearings to appeal systems. So,
well, I think there are some outs. It's not lost forever. Certainly, if he goes to Fort Leavenworth somewhere down the line, he can be released early based on performance. Is what they call it in prison.
He'll probably be a prison doctor.
Based on good behavior.
Yeah, no, really.
But certainly someone needs to take up the ability here to do something about this. Now, Congress can certainly take some initiatives, and they've stayed away from it for the most part. I haven't seen anybody really standing up in Congress, senators or congressmen. Somebody in the court system, and I'd like to see our Supreme Court get a little more actively involved in what's happening here, and not just sit there at the Justice Department, not the Justice Department, but at the Supreme Court, and act more passively about what's happening in this country.
Sir, I appreciate your time. If you get a minute, we have a website, khow.com, and we put this up. It's called Female Soldiers of the World. It was sent to me by a friend. I put it up. You'll get a kick out of it.
Good. I'll be happy to look at it.
Merry Christmas. Thank you, sir.
Merry Christmas to everybody and all your audience.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, we come back. Again, khow.com. It's called Female Soldiers of the World. It's very good, and it's politically incorrect, I suspect. Up to the minute traffic. Here's Susan. It's 6:37, 23 minutes before the hour, Thursday morning, 14th of December, 29, the high today. Colonel Lakin found guilty. Please say good morning, welcome back. I read her, Dr. Kate's View blog. Dr. Kate Vandermeer is with us. She is in an automobile right now, I believe, traveling to over to Fort Meade. Hey, Dr. Kate, good morning, welcome back.
Thank you. Good morning to you, sir.
Thank you.
How can I help you?
Well, just your overall view of yesterday and what do you believe will happen today and how this is all going to shake down?
Well, at this point, I do believe that Lieutenant Colonel Lakin has made his point. And hang on one second here. I think we're going to be having problems getting into the gate this morning. Hang on.
Take your time.
Okay, hang on. All right. Right now, what I have to say is, the initial concern.
You all right?
Hang on. I'm sorry.
That's okay, ma'am. Take your time. Take your time.
Okay. Just there's some interesting security issues here. Okay, so the basic thing is when the judge early on eliminated Lieutenant Colonel Lakin's defense on the eligibility issue, he really was stuck with a bad situation because, of course, he could not defend himself, and from that standpoint, then every charge that he was accused of, he was going to be convicted, and if he fought the charge, it would be worse for him. So yesterday, what I saw was essentially, the trying to minimize the damage, if you will. So he had pled guilty to the first charges. The second charge, or the first charge on missing movement, I thought Attorney Neil Puckett did an excellent job yesterday of basically demolishing the government's case. When the jury came back yesterday with 4 questions for the attorneys, one of their questions was, quote, "What is the meaning of required?" unquote. At that point, with that question, you began to see what was going to be going on here. And so, despite the excellent job that Neil Puckett did yesterday, this was a done deal. He was convicted, within an hour of basically the closing arguments. So, at this point, we have to support not only Lieutenant Colonel Lakin's decision to take it as far as he could, but now we have to support him in helping him get back to his family and helping him, really move through this. He has advanced our movement considerably. What I found most significant yesterday is in a military court of law, the doubts about Obama's eligibility were raised and not challenged. Lieutenant Colonel Lakin, in trying to do his duty as a soldier, did every single thing that he possibly could, including going to Congress, going up his chain of command, and the question was never answered. And that went in on the record. The question was never answered. The 2 witnesses called in Lieutenant Colonel Lakin's defense were fellow soldiers who had observed his exemplary conduct on the battlefield and so forth. And both of them also affirmed, it's a soldier's duty to raise this issue in the forum where it won't cause downfield problems. In other words, Lieutenant Colonel Lakin could not have raised this issue if he was on the battlefield. So he took the choice of doing it right now before that. It's a very distasteful choice for him. I am extraordinarily upset with the treatment he got. And he had to eat crow yesterday. It was really painful. Lieutenant Colonel Lakin fell on his sword for the Constitution. He's taken it as far as he can. And now we have to see what is next. So that's my overall view. I'm, of course, not happy at all. We are praying for a miracle this morning, because if the book is thrown at him today, after he ate crow yesterday and was humiliated.
Everybody. Dr. Kate, when you say that, what do you mean when he was forced to eat crow?
He was forced to admit that he was wrong and that the Army was not the right place.
And that's being used this morning in the press.
Yes, and the pictures of his family were up on the wall, and the attorney said, "Is that what you really want, to have your children have the image of their father behind plexiglass or bars?" Yeah. And so it was really cruel. It was really punishing. And colleagues here believe that this was a tactical retreat.
Two things. We spoke with Paul Vallely moments ago. 2 questions I have. Number one, using what's called the next man theory. This is a warning shot to anybody else who thinks they can try and do this. They will be equally destroyed. Number two, the way that it's being reported in the so-called MSM this morning is that Lakin stood there and turned and apologized, and that he was wrong, and that there's nothing to this, and it's being used that way.
We anticipated that was the case, but this, I think it's the correct term, is really a tactical retreat. And I think that basically, honestly, to tell you the truth, the attorney's job right now is to minimize the punishment to Terry Lakin.
What do you think will happen to him?
I have no idea. All I can tell you is that I'm praying for leniency. I think, to tell you the truth, if what he went through yesterday, if he is thrown out of the service and into the brig today, then this is a huge issue. It lives. If he is given the leniency that we hope, because, he's gone as far as he can. He's gone as far as he can within the military. Then I think that we have won. I think we've already won, because the issues of eligibility have been raised.
Yeah, I mean, I said that too. He moved the ball down the field. Although we know as much about the constitutional eligibility of Barack Obama as we did when this began. The only bright side, if there is one this morning, is the amount of attention that it's been given.
Yes,
Yes,
and here's the other issue I want to raise, and I've been thinking about it. Is it possible that there's somebody in the military, or several, who are absolutely concerned about the eligibility, and they chose and convinced and picked the perfect soldier to take this case? Because now all focus is on Congress. They failed us before, but the new Congress better take this up. So, it's really a reflection time. Honestly, I feel like we've been used. There's been so much mistruth. This proceeding seems to be so scripted, even down to the tears, that, again, I just wondered this morning, well, maybe there's somebody in there who's setting this up. But on the other hand, I've seen so much junk that I believe it's what you said initially, is that this is a sign that we're going to trash anyone who does this. Now, if Lakin is given leniency, that puts a whole different spin on that one. Because if he's not shown leniency and he's thrown away, well, then there you are. It is the example setting. If he's given leniency, I do believe that means that there's something else going on as far as the soldier being picked up to take the ball down the field a little bit further and so forth. When you step back at this, you look at the armies out there fighting battles in Afghanistan. And, if they start to try to move on the president on this kind of situation, they're going to have an eruption of battle within the ranks.
Dr. Kate, I'm right at my break, and I got Jerry Corsi standing by. You're what they always say: hope for the best and expect the worst.
Correct. That's the way we're all planning this morning, and it's been an extraordinary experience.
Yeah.
I'd love to talk with you again, because today and over the next few days we can really see this.
I promise you will. We will. Doctor, thank
you so much.
You're more than welcome. 14 before the hour. We'll come back. We got about 10 minutes with Jerry Corsi. Lots of open lines this morning. Traffic on a Thursday. Here's Susan. And maybe one of the most politically incorrect postings we've ever put on our website, KHOW.com, called Female Soldiers of the World. It's going to take you time to get through it, but you're going to send it. You're going to love it. Maybe you won't love it. Probably some of you will not love it, but it's got to be the best. It's called Female Soldiers of the World, KHOW.com. For those who've been watching the construction of the new beautiful Trice building, I'm going to be there on Saturday. Is after 37 years, same location. Ralph and Justin Klomp and Susie and the Watch King and everybody, they moved Trice. They moved to that brand new location, the streets of South Glen. South University Arapahoe. Trice is famous for the beautiful collection of Russian cut diamond earrings, ultra bright clean diamonds, diamond tennis bracelets, back in demand, Russian diamonds set in gold, platinum, engagement rings. It is all there. Remember the Trice Diamond Guarantee. If you can't find you can't find a better diamond at a lower price anywhere, including the internet. You can brighten up her year, grandma's year, mom's year, amazing colored stone necklaces and rings and bracelets, watches. It is really, literally all there. So think diamonds, think jewelry, think the holidays, think Trice, think Christmas. If it's fine jewelry, they got it, guaranteed lowest prices, free gift wrapping, and plenty of free parking. Again, the brand new location, the streets of South Glen, South University at Arapahoe. Please say good morning. Welcome back to 630 KHOW. Dr. Jerry Corsi. Yesterday, of course, Colonel Lakin was found guilty on all charges. Good morning, sir. Welcome back to the show.
Peter, glad to be back with you. Thank you.
Overall thoughts?
Well, first of all, this is pretty much going the trial as I predicted it would. I believe the court-martial would find Lakin guilty on all charges. Today, they ought to proceed to sentencing. I mean, I thought it would take 2 or 3 days to get through this process. I think we'll find out very quickly here what the sentence is going to be. And my prediction is it will be long and hard, and the court-martial will require Lakin to start immediately. and not let him remain free while he's on appeal. It's going to be very severe, and I think the Obama administration is kind of blindly headed down this alley where they're going to find themselves at the end of the alley with no escape, and they're going to have created a political prisoner in Lieutenant Colonel Lakin, who will be going soon to the stockade, essentially probably Leavenworth, and be incarcerated under hard time for a long time.
The media is, we just spoke with moments ago, just before you maybe even heard her on the air, Dr. Kate, they call her, the Vandermeer, and others have said that yesterday Lakin was made to eat crow. That's being used in the press, that he, and we spoke with his brother earlier, his brother said no, what he did apologize was for using the military as the route to do so. But he was not sorry in the sense of, geez, I'm sorry I ever started this. My sense of it, again, from reading for the last couple of days, is going back to September the 2nd, when the Colonel Lynn denied him any rights to discovery, expert witnesses, testimonies, anything like that. At that point, he lost the case.
Well, I've said that from the beginning. As soon as the decision was made that the chain of command could not be raised beyond the Pentagon, then there was no defense, because this defense is a Nuremberg defense, which calls into question the morality of the order on the basis that the president is not eligible to be president under the natural-born citizen requirement of Article 2, Section 1 of the Constitution. And the press may want, my view is that Obama's eligibility issue is unraveling.
Mine too.
Unravel very quickly now. By the middle of next year, it's going to look very different. And Lieutenant Colonel Lakin, while he's going to have to suffer through incarceration, is going to end up an American hero, very much as Ramos and Campion did, the two Border Patrol agents whom President Bush commuted their sentences on his last day in office, firing after a fleeing Mexican drug agent. Ramos and Campion were clearly doing their job and were clearly American heroes of the border. And they'll be remembered, by millions of people for a long time over that. But at the same time, Ramos and Campion pay a price. They're still felons. Their sentence was not reversed. Their sentence was commuted. They were still guilty of the felony that they were convicted of, which I believe was completely a travesty. And Lieutenant Colonel Lakin is probably going to be stripped of his rank, dishonorably discharged, lose his pension, have to spend time in the stockade. There's American heroes. And the military, I think, to a large extent, will rally around Lieutenant Colonel Lakin. Many will, who have been trained on the moral principles of the Nuremberg Law to know that this is the kind of question you have to raise. And look, every time I go to Arlington Cemetery, I see the thousands upon thousands of men and women, American heroes, who gave the full measure of their devotion, their lives, fighting for the United States of America. And Lieutenant Colonel Lakin is going to have to lose his pension and his family, but ultimately I think he will be vindicated as an American hero for raising the issue of Obama's eligibility.
What do you think happens next?
The sentencing. I'm not sure how the technical procedures of the court-martial are going to work, but I believe now that they've got the court-martial constituted, they'll immediately sentence him or do it as quickly as they can. Then I think the Judge Lind will order him into the stockade and not allow him to remain free on appeal. And as soon as we get the photographs and the pictures of Lieutenant Colonel Lakin surrendering himself to the authorities with the family and parting, as we did with Ramos and Campion, and I urge the family to make sure all that's documented and made available on the Internet so people can see it. Then I think we have the beginnings of a political prisoner being made, and I, for one, intend to continue moving down the path of questioning the eligibility. I'll have a book out in April, end of April, beginning of May, on the birth certificate. The pressure's ramping up. We're going to have a more Republican Congress in place. This is the last hurrah days of the lame duck Congress with the Democrats in power. So things are going to change in January, and it's going to look very different in January through the middle of next year on the eligibility question of Barack Obama.
I really agree to that. Let me read you just from getting a lot of emails this morning, a lot of them after me, after you, after Lakin, after others. Final part, the bottom line is this guy's no hero, does not deserve a medal. His emergence on the scene will not produce a birth certificate now or ever. He wasted his life and his career over a silly notion that he knew he could not achieve. In short, he's a GD fool and he got what he deserved.
Well, look, the person who wrote that email would be well advised to, if he has any sense or she has any sense of history at all, to go review the history of the Nuremberg trials. The German military made the argument in 1946, when the trials, through the post-war period, that they were obeying orders and that they had no authority to question Hitler or their superiors. And the court-martials then constituted internationally said, balderdash, you had a moral responsibility. And the Germans laughed at the American tribunal in Nuremberg and said, you'll never impose this standard on yourself. Mm-hmm. And, unfortunately, the Nazis were right. Any soldier who raises a moral reason for disobeying orders is going to pay a price. And the person who wrote that letter ought to go back and revisit what happens in history when people do not act morally.
I believe this, Jerry. I believe that this is the next man theory. This is the military, the Department of Defense, the administration warning the next man. You see what we just did? We denied him his rights in that courtroom. He was not allowed anything, and he's going to do time, and his career is over. And not only that, you can take his medical license and throw that in the trash as well. Anybody else want a shot at this? And that's the question. I mean, that's the statement.
No question they're doing that, but in the process they're making a political prisoner. Ramos and Campion always try to send the order to the border, don't shoot at Mexicans.
Yeah, again, I think they hope that, like how he's being handled in the MSM and other places, that he'll be seen as these emailers call a coward and a clown. Sad morning, but we knew it would happen. Hey, Doc, Merry Christmas. If I don't talk to you next week, I got a little time off. Thank you everything for this year. I'll talk soon.
Thank you, Peter.
Dr. Jerry Corsi, we come back and open lines on 630 KHOW. Stay here.